What's up, guys? A five-time champ, Booker T. I just want to say, man, the Compadres miss you guys, man. I've been working like crazy underwater at sometimes. Sometimes I'm like at 50,000 feet, and it seems like I'm at 50,000 feet like more than 5 times a week these days. But hey, it doesn't matter. I'm back. Compadres, hit me up, man, because it seemed like you guys have been kind of like putting me on the back burner. I need to be back on the show. Hit me up, ASAP.
Wrestling buddies want to be your buddy.
Hey, buddy. Buddy!
You got me mad now.
Welcome to the Wrestling Compadres Slamcast. Booker T is now available, and the Compadres are scattered throughout the world looking for him. They're trying to find him. They're everywhere. Johnny LaQuasto is in the Middle East. He's got a troop of guys together, the best guys that could ever find Booker T. He's got Austin Aries. He's got Shane Helms. He's got Ken Anderson and more. They're out entertaining the troops and, of course, looking for Booker T. Chuck Rice is in Houston, Texas, perhaps even having an interview with the Lockhart brothers on the whereabouts of Booker T, trying to get him back on the show. And I am here. I'm Scott Narver. You can find me on Twitter at Curtain Jerks, and you can listen to my comedy wrestling podcast, Curtain Jerks, available on iTunes and SoundCloud. And I'm here leading the brigade of the Compadres today. And of course, as always, Dale Rutledge is here with us on the phone. Dale, how you doing today, buddy?
I got a puppy.
I got a puppy?
Bad news.
That's right. I don't come onto the show without intro music, motherfucker.
Dale, where's Booker?
What's going on?
Yeah, doing all right. Of course, you're on Twitter at TheWalkingDale, and of course, you have your great YouTube show, youtube.com/dishingonmovies. Dale, any movies that have been dished on lately?
We've got a couple that are about to come out in like the next week or two, so we're going to keep you on your toes for them. But some throwback movies, maybe a little 80s movie that is having an anniversary, if you can think of one, and then maybe a couple of new flicks as well.
Is it the anniversary of Tango and Cash?
More excitingly, I will be at SummerSlam in less than 2 weeks, guys.
Wow. Less than 2 weeks? You're going to be at SummerSlam?
Yeah, that's right.
Fighting Stephen Amell. That's amazing. That's really amazing.
Yeah, it's me versus, I'm actually versus, I don't know, another obscure character from the show. Black Canary.
There you
got it. There's one.
There you go. And also joining us in the studio, a very close friend of mine that I've worked with over the years. I'm very happy to have him here. He's also the innovator of New Japan Pro Wrestling, doing things before Jim Ross ever even was told he should be doing them. You can find his great commentary on dailymotion.com/NJPW English. He's at Marc Warzecha on Twitter. Marc Warzecha is here.
Whoa, I got a sound effect.
Yeah, you do. It's startling, isn't it?
I love being back on the show. It's great to be back on. And, last time I was on one time when Chuck wasn't here. Mm-hmm. And Chuck's not here this time either. No. And when I was here last time and Chuck wasn't here, he said, because Damian Sandow was doing the Mizdow gimmick, right? Where he would do everything that Miz did. So Chuck said that I was the Chuck Dow when I sat in. But I guess I could be the Chuck Dow or the Johnny Dow today. Either way, right?
Yeah, you could be any of the Dows.
I could take my pick.
Yeah.
I'll be the Chuck Dow, you be the Johnny Dow.
Oh, okay, I'll be the Johnny Dow. All right.
Dale's just Dale, holding it down as always.
Yeah, the hold it down Dale.
Wait, I want to be somebody else.
You can be the Booker Dow.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. That was a nice little bumper we got from Booker this week. He sent that over while Chuck was down there. I thought that was really sweet of Booker to even care that he was missing from the show.
Yeah.
Dale, I'm jealous of you getting to go to SummerSlam because we, of course, had it out here in Los Angeles for like 5 years in a row, and they stole it from us this year and put it out in Brooklyn, so we can't go, but I'm glad you can go.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say that it's my fault, but I mean, I was there for the entire run of LA, and then they heard I was moving, so, you know, obviously the answer was to take SummerSlam to the East Coast.
Yep. And we are going to get Hell in a Cell, though, at LA Staples Center in October. We've been thrown that bone by WWE.
That's right. Bloodless Hell in a Cell.
Isn't that cute?
A Hell in a Cell with no blood.
That's right. Just pure carnage internally.
Severe damage to internal organs
that you never see and don't really believe is happening.
In doctor's appointments, Tuesday and Wednesday morning, the week of Hell in the Cell, wrestlers will be told that they have internal bleeding.
Yes, kidney trouble in a cell.
Hey, peeing blood is a real problem, guys. That's a real thing.
Whoa. It's an epidemic. But you know what we did get instead? We don't get SummerSlam, it's true. We'll talk about WWE later. But what we did get in Los Angeles was Lucha Underground's Ultima Lucha.
Yes.
That was in our backyard. And Dale, you and I were there, and we couldn't talk about this for months.
Oh, man, we've been sitting on our hands on this one for a while, but, I mean, if you guys got a chance to watch it, it was 2 hours of just wrestling glory, and you did get some blood at this thing, that's for sure.
Some.
Yeah, you got a heck of a lot. It was great, I thought.
A pretty man bled. That's when you know it's serious. Johnny Mundo. When you make a pretty man bleed, that's some serious wrestling right
hardcore.
There. Yeah.
And a run-in from Melina. We haven't seen Melina in like 5-ish years, I believe, since she was inside an actual ring.
We've seen her in person out here.
True.
But we haven't seen her on television as a wrestling character.
Stop driving by her house, Mark.
I stalk Melina out here in Los Angeles.
She did come to, her and Thea came to the house for Royal Rumble a couple of years ago, and I think they only came to see Roman Reigns in the ring, to be honest with you.
Ooh.
Well, Thea's got a little bit of an obsession on Roman Reigns. I don't know if that's a secret, but it's not anymore.
Well, at the time that we saw it, which was back in March or April, Melina was fresh off the heels of JR's podcast, where she had announced that she was retired from wrestling.
Yeah, she worked us, fellas.
Oh, worked and
we got worked.
Swervy works.
It's an old school worker.
And then it came out of nowhere, like an RKO, and came to the aid of Johnny Mundo.
Yeah.
Do you think she gets a cool name? Because it's Alberto Del Patron and Johnny Mundo. Do you think
they just called her Melina on the show?
Right, but it seems like she should have an addition to her name. Dale, do you think she should have an addition to her name?
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, Melina is her actual name. Right. Maybe she could be like Melina
Mundo?
Melina Mundo?
I mean, there are a couple, right?
Right? Or
they're not married.
Oh, come on. Oh, so you're saying they're living in sin? Ooh, what about like Sinful Melina? But in Spanish, so it sounds cooler.
Melina Morrison?
Yeah. There you go. She gets that name.
He'll go by Mundo and she'll go by Morrison.
Yeah, Melina Nitro. That was a great match. That match was so fun because Mundo was just running around like crazy, hiding the whole time and trying to get away from Alberto.
Yeah. I hope this sounds like a compliment because I want it to sound like a compliment. But I think that those two guys, there are a lot of times when those two guys would be, featured in a SmackDown match or a Raw match, and it might just feel like another match on the show, even though, of course, John Morrison and Alberto Del Rio were big stars in WWE as well.
Yes.
But I thought it was a testament to how well Lucha Underground was booked, that we saw these guys, like Johnny and Alberto, against each other, and it meant so much, and it was so epic, and it was so great, and it really was.
Yeah, I made a comment to you guys when watching it there that I said, I've watched this as a main event on SmackDown for seemingly years, and it meant nothing.
Yeah.
This match here meant everything.
Yeah. And they wrestled
it's
like
all
it
about
meant
the booking. I mean, that's definitely, the storytelling should always come number one. I mean, there's so many talented guys that can work inside of a ring, but unless you give them something to work with, it just doesn't matter, and this is definitely a testament of that.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, that match was outstanding. Another highlight that I thought was great was Vampiro versus Pentagon Jr.
Yeah.
That was insane.
It was sort of the sickest hardcore match that I've seen in a very long time. But the story that they told to build up to it made it feel completely appropriate. And I don't know if I felt that way watching a sort of hardcore match like that in like 20 years. You know, where it's like, it makes sense that they're doing this to each other. And then the angle at the end was tremendous.
Yes.
Yeah. Who would have thought that he would be the actual master? I mean, I did not see that coming.
Yes, Vampiro being the master to Pentagon Jr., who he's been looking for this whole time.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it was going to be that beast in the cage that's down below in the basement, whatever that thing is.
Oh, I thought Chuck was playing that guy.
Zinger!
That match, and there was some editing in that match, because Dale, when you and I saw that live, there was some extra bits of mayhem that happened in there with the light tubes.
Holy crap! When they have those light bulbs, those long, what are those? Those are fluorescent light bulbs, I believe. A half of one broke off when he popped it on his head and flew into the crowd over this like adorable family of like 2 daughters and a mom or something, and didn't hurt anybody, but missed them within like millimeters or so.
Yeah.
And the girl just like broke into tears after it didn't hit her, and they had to like excuse themselves from the match. But they did come back. I was very proud of them that they came back after that and enjoyed the rest of the show.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was amazing. The light tube just flew over her head. Everybody watched it and gasped, just freaking out like, oh no, this almost ruined wrestling for all of us. Had a little girl been getting glass in her eye. And there's a cop right next to him, just part of security, but an actual cop there, and looks and sees them crying and just doesn't even try and coax him. He's just like, yeah, come on, I'll walk you out, no big deal. But yeah, like Dale said, hardcore fans come right back in and enjoy the show later on.
Wow. Little girls can like hardcore wrestling too.
Mm-hmm. But still hate the Miz as champion. And then Prince Puma versus Mil Muertes for the title.
Yep, great match.
Dale, do you know about Mil Muertes? Is it true that he's oh God, what was the character's name in TNA? The brother of Abyss. Is that true? Do you remember this guy?
Oh, is that true? I don't know that. We should find out. I had heard that, but I hadn't heard it from a reliable source.
Joseph Park, Esquire?
Judas Macias.
Judas Macias.
That's the rumor, that it's Judas Macias, who I guess gained 100 more pounds of muscle somehow.
Yeah.
And is that beast of a man.
Yeah.
He's their Brock Lesnar.
He's awesome.
Seems unlikely, but I mean, I guess it's been a minute since we've seen him, so I guess it's possible. But let's ask a more reliable source.
The gimmick
but
is
I
really
love
cool.
that this was Puma's season, like to win the inauguration of the title, and have it ripped in half, which was an awesome moment by Cage, and then get the real belt, and then just keep it the whole season, and then lose it at the end to Mil Muertes. I mean, it was perfect storytelling. I love the way that they did it.
Yeah, they set up season 2 really nice, I think, with some of this stuff on the show. That closing shot of Mil Muertes and his crew, and they've sort of taken over, and they've got all the titles, and it's the new era of death on Lucha Underground, and the stuff with Vampiro too, and that angle of he's the master, and now he's going to be the mentor for Pentagon Jr. and where that could go, and Melina returning. It's like they definitely were, and Dario Cueto, escaping and running off to start his new temple somewhere. Like it was really, really fascinating to me to watch, because this is not a thing that we've seen a lot of in the history of professional wrestling. Like, the season ends.
Yeah.
The season ends.
We have a cliffhanger.
Yeah, and you set up cliffhangers like most other scripted television shows. They have a season that ultimately ends, and you wrap up stories and you tease things for next time. And it was really different and unique and original to see a wrestling show wrap up like that.
And what's greater benefit to this show, Wrestling Compadres Slamcast, is on the phone right now, we have the producer of Lucha Underground, and they're talking about making a season 2, and we're clearly in desperate want of a season 2. We have Eric Van Wagenen on the phone right now with us. Eric, are you there?
Hello, I am here. Hello, compadres. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
We're in great spirits because of Lucha Underground. It's such a fun, interesting, dynamic show, and now we're craving more. We want season 2.
You and me both. I'm dying. I want to get back into it. Yeah, it's a frequently asked question, I would say, in my life right now. Is what's the status of season 2? And I did a rather thorough Ask Me Anything on Reddit last week, where I tried to kind of address sort of all the different factors in what's happening with season 2. It sort of breaks down to if it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and where it's going to happen. I can tell you with almost full surety that it is going to happen. The when and the where is all dependent on our ability to raise enough money to keep the production standard the same. We are all very committed to keeping Lucha Underground sort of the best looking, the most innovative, and the most creative wrestling product out there. And that, it sometimes comes at a price. The vignettes that Skip Jason directs and shoots for us, they're not cheap. Neither are a lot of the editing and a lot of the things that goes into making the show. And as El Rey is a great network to work with, they just can't justify spending the kind of money that you would get from a much bigger cable channel. So we're looking for alternate ways to raise the money, whether that's a secondary broadcast network. We're looking at streaming services. I know there's a kind of a hashtag going around, Netflix needs Lucha, which is getting a lot of traction. We're sort of looking at all of our options on that, and that will determine both the when and the where. There's talk of moving to a cheaper location, and we are really, really hoping to have things settled up. If I were to guess, I would say we'll be back on the air by January.
Wow.
Which I know it's not ideal. I know it's not what any of us really want, but if I think that's because we look at it from the model of wrestling, where it's 52 weeks a year. If you look at other TV shows, it's not uncommon at all to go off the air for 3-4 months. It's not uncommon for some shows, like on HBO, they'll go off the air for a year. Curb Your Enthusiasm will take a year off, or some of the other shows that sort of expensive serialized shows will do that from time to time. So everybody who's involved with the show is committed to keeping it on the air. But we're committed to keeping this show on the air. We don't want to dumb it down. We don't want to cheap it out. We have a great creative team in place. We want to be able to keep everybody doing exactly what it is we've done in season 1. So we're working out the details.
Well, Eric, one of the questions that I have right off the bat is, I know you talk about it being on Netflix. I've always been a big advocator of it being available digitally, and I know people would love it on DVD and Blu-ray, but like an iTunes or Vudu or any of those streaming capabilities, because that's the great way of being able to digitally gift it to someone else, even across the world, that if you go, you've never seen it, here, have it. Here it is available
Absolutely.
to you.
Yeah, and we're definitely looking at those. I mean, those deals tend to pay off downstream a little ways, and not really up front. But we're definitely interested in that. I think that the wrestling fans in particular still buy DVDs. They still buy Blu-rays, whereas a lot of movies, so you don't see people buying DVDs of movies quite as much as you used to. But I think wrestling fans they like to have the physical possession of the DVD, and they like to trade discs and have a collector. They're collectors. Wrestling fans are really by their nature collectors, I think. And so we're definitely interested in doing that, having that as an option as well.
Eric, what can you tell us about the contract status of the talent? A lot of people are sort of speculating about this online. You mentioned shows like Curb that might take a year off. If it is a year between seasons of Lucha, is the talent able to appear on television for other wrestling promotions in that time period? And if not, how long of a time period can pass before they would be allowed to appear?
Well, I don't really want to get into the overall the specifics of anyone's contract. There are some slight variations, going from wrestler to wrestler. We do have the television option on these guys for a period of time after Ultima Lucha airs. This is the part that for me personally is the hardest part, because look, these guys they all pitched in with us a year ago, and bought into what we were trying to do, and they believed in us, and they took a risk with us. And I hate whenever one of them calls me to not have a definitive date. I just keep telling them, look, if you need to book this month, book this month. If you need to book next month, book next month. I'll tell you, as soon as I get an approved budget and approved schedule, the first thing I do is I tell our cast, okay, here's the dates that you need to keep open from us. We like to, obviously we don't want to have our guys appearing, especially in gimmick on television. The guys are free to do any kind of indie work they want. They can actually be on television outside of the U.S. I think we've opened it up for pay-per-views for these guys. There's some guys that if they're affiliated with AAA, Brian Cage wrestled at Triple Mania this last weekend. That's all fine. We're good with that. In fact, I've been pushing Dorian to try and book as many of our guys as we can, just to keep them working. I mean, there's real life implications of being on hiatus like this for these guys, and careers are short in wrestling, and you want to maximize your earning every week that you can. And that's the part for me personally that's the hardest, is not being able to promise these guys a check next week. And I'm hoping that we get the chance to make it up to them when we get going in season 2.
So Eric, what can we do as fans to help out the process? Is there anything that you're trying to push or that we can help promote or hashtag? You mentioned on Twitter, Netflix needs Lucha, but is there anything else that we can do?
I think that the beauty of the Lucha Underground fan is that the word of mouth is the stuff you can't buy. I mean, sure, we'd love you to all go into the store and buy a T-shirt or buy a poster set or a hat or something like that. That's great. That's all stuff that when we start looking in the pot, that slowly starts to fill it up. Spreading the word socially. I'm hoping that we'll get marathons and reruns of season 1 on El Rey and watch those and commit to watching those. I think it's just really spreading the word. If the Netflix hashtag works, that's fantastic. We'll happily. I would think that based on the sheer volume of the hashtag Netflix needs Lucha that I've seen just in the last 3 days since Friday, we're on their radar, and it's just now a question of, working, convincing them that a weekly serialized wrestling show belongs on a platform where people tend to binge watch. And I do think that, unlike other products, Lucha Underground definitely sort of fits into a binge watch kind of a series.
We were just before you came on, Eric, we were just all raving about how much we love the show and how much we love the finale and how exciting it was to see a season and unique it was to see a season of a wrestling show wrap up, because usually wrestling has this soap opera element where it never really ends, and how well we thought you guys did it and teased the next season so well. And I was particularly blown away by the post credits montage at the end of the show, and seeing all the characters depart and what they were off to do. Could you just talk? I thought it was one of the coolest things I've seen in 30 years of watching wrestling, honestly. And could you just talk a little bit about that and the process?
That was a really fun scene, and the way that all came about is originally Chris DeJoseph had sort of written a different ending when we were assuming that we were going to come right back and that we were going to stay in Boyle Heights, and we sort of were working towards a one sort of finale point, assuming that everything was going to stay the same. As we got closer to the end and the final taping, at some point I had to say to him, "Hey, Chris, look, we're not 100% sure that we're going to be back here right away. So, I think that the smart thing for us to do is to just kind of like pull this apart and look at how can we end the season and pay off a satisfying ending, but then leave a lot of things up in the air for season 2, so that we have a lot of options on the table when we return with season 2. And I'm sort of a mark for Goodfellas, the movie, and one of the things that I've always loved is the scene in Goodfellas where everybody gets whacked. Everybody associated with the heist gets whacked, and it's sort of this, I think it was Derek Madono's or Cream or something playing in the background, and everybody starts getting put into the dumpsters. That montage, and I've always sort of loved that. And I said, what if we created something kind of like that? And so Chris went back with Chris Roach and Matt Stolman, and they worked on a bunch of different scenarios that they thought would kind of push it forward into season 2. And then I talked to Skip Chasen, the guy who directs it, and he took that idea and just like knocked it out of the park. All you have to do to him is just say, do a Scorsese like ending for this, and he goes crazy. And then we also brought in the guy who does our music. This guy named Russell Emanuel, who runs a company called Bleeding Fingers, and we brought him into the process early. We said, we want you to score this particular theme, and we want it to fit like this, and then this character is kind of like this. And if you look at the details of that, everything is sort of, it was such a great group effort, and everything just kind of tied together nicely. And then the floating Dario shot at the end, that was Skip Chasen's creation, and that just felt like such a cool button, and it looked so cool. And they would send me like dailies, and they'd process them, and they'd color correct them, and they'd just shoot kind of the raw footage to me, and I'd sit with the editors, and Chris would come down and we'd look at it. And it was just such a really cool group effort to put that final scene together. And it was like even things like, we need to change a little bit of the music here when Phoenix gets in the Firebird and drives off. Can we have a little bit of this? And then our composer would come in on the weekend, and he'd rescore that section. And I mean, it was kind of like all of our own love letter to the series, and we really wanted it to feel special and feel like we were paying off the fans. And even the little details, the to be continued, we sort of called that audible at the very last minute. We were doing the final online, and we didn't have that in there. At the very last minute, I just said, shit, let's I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on podcast.
No, absolutely, yeah.
I said let's just put to be continued, and we want to tell our fans that we're not giving up, and that we are going to keep the show on the air, and that yes, this is a story we're going to continue. So it was really one of the most fun sort of parts of the entire series, and everybody had a hand in it, and it was really cool. I think I probably have watched it over the course of creating it at least 100 times.
It's definitely something to be proud of. Congrats on it. It was really, really awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Everybody sort of, did their part, and we're all really proud of that episode.
Also, Bleeding Fingers would be a great name for a hardcore lucha wrestler.
I know, right? Those guys are great. It's actually Hans Zimmer, the 13-time Academy Award-winning producer. That's his TV music company. So there's some super talented guys at Bleeding Fingers as well, and they were the ones who created a lot of the music for like the character walkouts and stuff like that, and a lot of the themes that you hear in Lucha Underground. So I mean, these are all the reasons why the show looks great, and it's also the reason why the show is more expensive than a typical 1-hour wrestling show.
Mm-hmm.
And we have thousands of questions to ask you. We have, so much from fans and just from a production standpoint. And I don't want to leave Dale out in the lurch here. Dale, is there anything else that you want to ask Eric while we got him on the line?
Well, I wanted to ask about the AMA that you did. Have you ever done something like that on Reddit before? And was there anything that kind of popped up in that you feel like the fans should be aware of?
Yeah, there was. I mean, it was that was really cool. I sort of lurked on Reddit, but I'm not much of a social media guy. I'm not. I sort of. I'm much more just kind of like to read those things and see what people are saying. And then somebody sort of hit me up on Twitter and asked me if I would be willing to do it, and I thought, sure, I guess. And then what's funny is like I knew what the first 10 questions, I knew exactly what they would be, so I kind of pre-wrote them and made sure that they were sending the right message and grammatically correct and they were accurate and whatever. And but then there was a lot of stuff that kind of got thrown at me that I hadn't really thought of, and it's interesting to see fans' perspective. I love passionate fans, and especially when they're not afraid to reach out and ask you what they really want to know, and I liked it. It was cool to do. I would I'm so used to reality television where you have non-disclosures and you can't really talk about stuff, and so to be able to sort of shine a light on some of the backstage stuff, which truthfully the fans care about sometimes as much as they do at least the dirt sheets do. They care as much about the backstage stuff as they do the on-screen stuff, and that's new for me, and so it's a little strange.
And is there a location? Idealistically, I suppose you guys would like to stay in LA, but is there a location that, if you had to, or that you've been kind of eyeballing as a possible secondary backup that you would enjoy to shoot at?
I hesitate to get into that. I'd love to I'd love to tell you. I'm worried about what the repercussions would be if I said it. But yes, there is. If we have to leave LA, which I'm not in favor of, and which I am absolutely 100% committed to staying in Boyle Heights and staying in that location on Anderson Street. I'm 100% committed to doing that. But if we have to move, there is a second location that's being scouted and investigated right now. But I have to leave something secret for season 2.
Well, I had the privilege of being there for the finale, and that location of where you guys shoot, even the outside, the neighborhood, everything about it adds to the atmosphere of what you're going to go see. It's not a stadium. It's not a high school gymnasium. There's something about it where you already know you are going into something underground. And then when you see the set and you see the ring and the lighting, everything about it, you go, I'm in some like back alley underground cool club that not everybody gets to see this. It's got such a cool vibe to it.
And really, look, the truth of the matter, we recreate very little on that set. If you were to go to that building right now and walk in there, you would recognize the Lucha Underground set. It does not look that different. But the one, and we could take that and recreate it somewhere if we had to. We could make a carbon copy of it, with the set decorators and the production designer. The problem that for me is you can't recreate the fans that were coming on a week-to-week basis. I mean, it was they were sort of an extra cast member, and we have a group of hardcore fans that were there every week, and they were they had their own sort of chants, and everyone had their own specific seats that they like to sit into, and there was like a subculture of Lucha Underground fans that would show up at tapings, and it really worked. And I would feel like I'm betraying the believers in the temple more than I am anybody else, and so for me that's a really hard thing, and that when you have it so perfect, you really, if you mess with that, you're really gambling a little bit on whether or not you can recreate it somewhere else.
Well, Eric, was
the strap match that you guys did in Ultima Lucha, was that sort of a repercussion of how awesome the fans are, or was that something that you had kind of planned on doing all along?
That was Chris DeJoseph's idea, and it made perfect sense. He told me about, I don't know, I'd say probably in January that he said, look, what if we created our own WrestleMania as a season finale, and we'll build all the storylines and blow them all off in this last 2-hour event. Could we do that? And immediately it was like, that's a great idea, Chris. Let's see what we can do. The problem is that, our order from the El Rey Network was 39 episodes, and Chris, and it makes sense if you're going to do something like that. Don't squeeze it into a 45-minute show. Really give it due time. So basically, what we had to do is I had to go around and ask everybody if they'd work that second hour basically for free. Those of us who are getting episodic rates, or people, certain people on the staff get paid by the shoot day, and basically we couldn't extend the production schedule that we had, and everybody had to kind of be willing to do that second hour for free, and that's not always an easy thing to get people to commit to doing, but I think because people love the show so much, and we felt like we owed it to the fans, that actual second hour cost incredibly little. There was very little additional cost to it. Some of the cast and a few of the sort of other things that you just can't get around, but that turned into a 2-hour, and then Chris and Matt had built up all these great storylines, and they're like, can we have a third hour? And at that point it's like, no, we can't have a third hour. So Chris came up with, well, let's start it the week before, and I said, oh shit, why not? Okay, let's do it. And so it's sort of like, it was Chris's idea, and he kind of wedged his foot in the door, and he just kept kicking it in and kicking it in. The next thing I know, we have a 3-hour 2-week special event, but it was the right call. It was by far the strongest 2-hour block, or 3-hour block really in the series. Everybody, felt like it was going to be a special event and that they had to do something big for it, and everybody brought it out. And I mean, what the cast did over the course of that weekend was phenomenal. And it was definitely the right call. And we're glad we did it. I hope we get to do it again next year. Ultima Lucha 2 has a nice ring to it. So maybe you should make sure everyone buys their original Ultima Lucha T-shirt, because I had an original WrestleMania T-shirt from when I was at WrestleMania for the first time, and I lost it. I think my mom threw it away when I went off to college. But you should buy your original Ultima Lucha T-shirt today.
Well, Eric, of course, but where should they do that?
I think actually we have LuchaUnderground.com now is where our store has moved to. I mean, there was another site where before we had kind of expanded some things that was being teased on the show, but now I do believe that it's LuchaUnderground.com is where you can find all your Lucha. Wait, maybe that's not it. I'm actually just trying it. If you go to the Lucha El Rey website and Facebook page, there's links to it, so you can always get it there. And I know that they've got some special Lucha Underground merchandise for Ultima Lucha.
Well, it's great. I hope everybody does go and support, get a shirt. I hope that it's available digitally. I hope there's hard copies of the season. I know you've got a couple purchases here right on the panel itself, and I know people are excited about it. I hope that fans do hop on Twitter and let Netflix know that Netflix indeed needs Lucha, and it's great to hear your passion. It's great to hear about you guys doing something different, and you were very conscious of it and wanting to do something really artistic and different for wrestling fans who love it and wanted to see a different vision of it. And it's really great to hear, and it needs to be supported because you guys do a dynamic, wonderful job. So, Eric, thank you so much for the show, and thanks for being on the show today.
Great, and thank you guys so much for your support. I know you guys have been out to the temple a few times, and you're always invited back. And great job on the Piper tribute last week. Roddy was a friend, and we will all miss him. But thank you guys very much for having me on.
Absolutely. Have a good day, Eric.
Okay.
Thanks, Eric.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, Eric.
Wow. Season 2 could be coming. Could be happening.
I hope so.
So close.
I mean, he's saying 99.9% that it will. It's just when and where. So I can deal with that.
Yeah, I'm dealing with that, and I'm fine with January. It does build that anticipation, and I'm fine with if they put in that kind of work and production into the show. Take your time.
Yeah,
I don't need it week to week, and then have a bunch of content where it's like, it doesn't mean a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'll say for the show, and I really like the show, and I really like the season, it's like I never felt like they wasted my time for a second. I never felt like they wasted my time. It was, they had a plan. It was really, and they stuck to it, and it was really high quality stuff.
Yeah. And
That's
now,
what I'm liking about television in general lately is like The Walking Dead, Game of Thrones. I mean, there's so many things that are keeping it more short, concise, and giving you just good storytelling. I would have never thought that wrestling would be able to hop on that same bandwagon, but I mean, Lucha Underground definitely proved itself and that it can fit inside of that same format.
Yeah, it feels like there's an opportunity here that you maybe even for Lucha to be a model for where the wrestling business could go, you know, with more wrestling type shows following that, you know, Breaking Bad, you know, Walking Dead kind of format with limited amount of episodes. We go one season at a time, and they can tell really coherent stories where every single thing matters. It'll be interesting to see if the business moves in that general direction.
it would be.
The problem with WWE, though, is that they're trying to fill arenas still. At the end of the day, they're still trying to get those butts and seats, and there's just no way to scale back on a tour.
Yeah, I don't think they could do it unless it was some type of new project that they started just for the network, you know. But some of these other folks, you know, the Lucha type folks, or maybe with Jeff Jarrett and what he's doing, or new promotions.
Jeff Jarrett doing?
New promotions that might come along. Maybe they'll follow that model.
Maybe they will, but it's on to the 13 hours a week of WWE. And the 3-hour Raw. Of course, Raw happening every week, and this week, no exception. We had Seth Rollins talking to a cutout of John Cena and his broken nose. And who was that? It was speculation.
I think it was Conan O'Brien in 1993.
It was Smigel.
Yeah. It was Robert Smigel on Conan from. It was like I felt like I was watching Conan from 20 years ago.
Cutting edge. Who was it? Who do you think that was? At first, I thought it was Zack Ryder. Was the voice of Cena and the lips and the teeth? But
I hope
is it a writer?
I hope it just was John Cena doing a bad John Cena impression of himself.
It was Seth Rollins.
Was it you, Dale? Was it you?
I gotta go.
It was Chuck.
I thought for how dry Seth Rollins can be on occasion, we said last week how he did a great job in the opening segment. I think this continued that trend, and it showed that he can be like comedic and is really just. I mean, what if he hadn't broken Cena's nose? Like, what have you been talking about for the past 2 weeks?
I don't know. It just would have been the same old hat, I think, is what it would have been. Of just like, I'm great, I beat everybody. That's that.
Yeah, actually, the way he hit Cena with that knee, though, I think he was pretty sure he was going to break his nose. That was like the most dangerous wrestling move I've ever seen. It was like, I'm going to grab the sides of your head and jam my knee into your face. There's no way you can protect yourself.
Hacksaw Jim Duggan's gonna have a field day with this too. Yeah, we had that. I mean, Raw was packed to the gills. We had a number one contendership for the title.
Yep.
And it's Owens and I mean, Dale, you've been talking about this for weeks of what's going to happen with Owens and Cesaro and Orton, and it's still culminating in this sort of, we don't know. And now Sheamus is thrown into the mix with everything going on. What do you think's happening at this point?
It looks like SummerSlam is going to just be like hella tag team turmoil for almost every match. So I my initial desire for these guys was to be in some kind of fatal four-way for the U.S. title, because like I said last week, I don't want it to be demoted. The Cesaro Kevin Owens feud could be super awesome. So I just wanted the title to be involved rather than just kind of being stuck between Cena and Rollins. But I don't know. I think now there's kind of a need for singles matches. So I think they could have Cesaro, Owens, and Randy Orton versus Sheamus and be fine, because it looks like we're getting so many other matches. I mean, with a 4-hour SummerSlam, they have the time to kind of give us everything that we've been building up to.
Yeah, it's 4 hours. So there's all the time in the world for matches that we don't expect to have. I mean, we are getting Stephen Amell and Neville versus Stardust and King Barrett.
Right.
Which seems... Does King Barrett need to be in this? Doesn't that seem like it changes up the dynamic of the superheroes that we had going on this whole time?
You think Stardust could do it all by himself? He is a superhero.
He is. He's a super villain.
Right. Oh, right. He's a super villain.
It seemed like that was a perfect opportunity if we're going to have another super villain or someone else to go against them.
Yeah.
Barrett doesn't seem like that guy.
Yeah. It should
Well, he's pretty. I mean, he's very heel and he's very character-y with the King gimmick. I think. I mean, he should be on the card most definitely. So I'm glad that they found a way to work him into this, even though it was really just via a really short pin on Raw. But I mean, I guess Goldust is still not doing anything. So I mean, I don't really have a better answer for who should be in there, and I know why they're doing it because obviously Stephen Amell can't just have a match on his own.
I know somebody.
I'm not anti it just because I really like seeing Barrett on the card, but it doesn't make a ton of sense. But I'm okay with that. Neither does having Stephen Amell have a match, really.
Well, I can think we need another celebrity in Stardust Corner who's a villain and who hates SummerSlam but loves Summerfest. Get Jeremy Piven in there. That guy wrestles. He took the crossbody on to Cena.
That's true.
You know, that guy can go. Fans hate him. You know,
that poor guy makes one slip up like 3 years ago now, and he cannot shake Summerfest to save his life.
That's why he's got to get it out of his system and fight it out in Brooklyn. Well, it's just
nobody wants to see Jeremy Piven in the damn ring.
Well, that's
I will say this is the first time in a long time, maybe ever. I can't think right at the moment, but of when a celebrity actually looked like they could go in the ring. I mean, he's very physically fit. I mean, you know that from watching Arrow, even just a montage on there. You can see that he's doing lots of exercises and weird, crazy stuff in his Batcave type thing. But also, I mean, he held his own against Triple H, and the way that he entered the ring, I mean, he hopped right over that top rope like it was nothing and just laid into Stardust. So I was very surprised by the whole interaction on Raw.
Yeah, he definitely seems like physically capable of, you know, if he's willing to work at it, and he seems like he's a big fan and would be willing to work at it, that he can get some basic moves down, you know, get a hot tag from Neville and come in and do some stuff, you know, for a couple minutes and look all right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
I'm just saying, if David Arquette can be the world champion, surely Stephen Amell can handle one match at some point.
Right. And worst comes to worst, just shoot people with arrows.
Exactly.
Just bring your bow and arrow with you.
Bring your bow and take somebody
that's
out.
a high spot.
Yeah. Just pin Barrett and his cape up against the turnbuckle, and then he can't tag. He can't tag.
That's a good question. Do you think that he'll do this in gimmick? Like, do you think he's going to come in sort of green Arrow attire? I mean, he had green jeans on Raw, so
that didn't even
there's a little nod to it. But do you think he'll be Stephen Amell, or will he be in some kind of Arrow garb?
I don't know. There's a fine line where it's like, oh, Stephen Amell shows up and fights. That's kind of cool. The second he dresses up as what he gets paid to do on TV, it's like, oh, that's sad.
Yeah, it gets into like RoboCop territory.
Yeah. It does.
Yeah.
When other outlets look at it like, oh, poor guy. He's showing up and doing that on wrestling now. This makes it feel really weak and stupid. And that's when they shame us. They always shame us. And speaking of a weird sort of shaming thing that happened, the faction that was Paige, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte is now named PCB because Submission Sorority had another affiliation to it that no one at WWE checked out about. Which I'm sure,
and I certainly had no idea. Just in case my fiance is listening.
I'll just go with the fact that it's something I don't need to see, probably.
Yeah,
but don't you think it's kind of weird though for them to have BAD, which is an acronym, and then to have PCB? I don't know. It just seems like. They didn't think about it. Like they just realized it before they went on air. I don't know. I don't really dig it.
Yeah, they could have taken a little bit more time, taken another pass at that. Like I don't know, their names, great, done. Hang on. Yeah, they have all this stuff about Divas Revolution. They have, they're going with many ideas, and they came up with one. Yeah. They had Submission Sorority. I'm sure there was at least another name in there, or was it just the backup was Paige, Becky, and Charlotte? That's it.
I mean, look, sorority in the first place isn't the most progressive sounding name for a group as part of this newly empowered, Divas Revolution. So it might be for the best. I would look. I'm not. I gotta say, I'm not loving the grouping them all together into these factions to begin with.
Yeah.
I think if they really want to go all the way with this and make Charlotte a star, and make Sasha a star, and bring what has been so special about them in NXT to the main roster, better to push them as individuals anyway. Let them break out. They did a really nice video package with Charlotte this week that I thought was great and was ballsy because they let her say, I want to be in the main event of WrestleMania one day. The main event of WrestleMania one day. Mm-hmm. Just like Ronda Rousey can headline UFC. And I think that stuff is great. And if you just focus on them as individuals, I think that's what's going to help them to really shine.
But I think, though, I understand what you're saying, but I think that in order to introduce them, I think it's not a bad idea to have them all kind of on the coattails of other people that we're used to seeing and maybe are already fans of. Because if you listen to, especially Becky and Charlotte, they're not amazing on the mic. Paige can really kind of just go, but it's not a bad thing to associate it with kind of the fan favorite of Paige, and then put Sasha with, the Naomi and just to have a heel sort of angle with them. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to introduce them all this way, get us to SummerSlam, and then have them kind of break off maybe, as the year progresses.
Hopefully. You're in charge of making sure they all break off at SummerSlam, Dale. You'll be there. You'll be there.
All right. I'll pass the info along to Stephanie and Tripp.
Thank you.
Well, Dale will make sure that happens of everyone falling out, and I guess maybe Chuck will mend fences, bring families together, because the Lockhart brothers and Ring of Honor, Reality Wrestling, so many wrestling companies out there, Reality Wrestling, they're feuding right now. But Chuck was down in Texas talking with these guys, and we have that interview coming up in a little bit. But Dale, you have a special treat for us first, do you not?
Yes, indeed. Me and Anson, of course, brought you This Week in Wrestling, as we try to do sporadically because, #life. But yeah, we got a little bit of This Week in Wrestling, a little bit more interviews, and let's hit it.
Let's hit This Week in Wrestling with Dale Rutledge and Anson.
And now This Week in Wrestling with Dale Rutledge.
And Anson. He's so awesome.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another week of This Week in Wrestling.
Welcome.
Adjust your eardrums for some delights from the past.
Yes. We're going to body slam your brain with some knowledge.
All right, first up, 2007, August 10th. The WWE announces that a heart abnormality, potentially life-threatening, was found in U.S. champion at that time, Montel Vontavious Porter.
MVP.
During a standard wellness policy physical. Treatment was given, and obviously MVP continues to wrestle to this day. So, see, they're not always trying to get a drug bust on people.
No. This potentially, saved MVP's life.
Yeah, and luckily he's still wrestling. He just left TNA, though, so I'm curious to see where he ends up.
Yeah, I love the feud he had with Matt Hardy.
Oh, yeah, that was pretty great. That Matt Hardy interrupting that ladder match.
Oh, yeah, huge.
Money in the Bank. That was pretty good.
Loved it. In 1988, on August 12th, Owen Hart makes his WWE debut as a masked wrestler called the Blue Angel in Oakland. But by the time he was on TV, the name was changed to the Blue Blazer. He won in his debut match against the one and only, the legendary Barry Horowitz.
Good old Barry Horowitz. What did you think about this angle? Do you think this is something they needed to do, or? It's
better than a generic masked wrestler named Masked Man #1.
Yeah, I guess so. He could be Mr. USA. Was that Hulk Hogan?
No, that was Mr. America.
Mr. America, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan was a guy that they erased from everyone's memory at this point.
I'm still waiting for him to come back as Mr. America.
Which does still exist.
Yeah.
Hogan gone, Mr. America in the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
August 13th, 2007, Demolition Crush sadly passed away. It was determined that the painkillers and sedatives that he was on while at a therapeutic level in combination are what led to his passing. He was 43 years old at the time.
Yeah, Demolition was one of my favorite tag teams as a child.
Oh, man, yeah.
The three of them, I mean, of course, Axe and Smash, but then you add the third element there, and they were just, I mean, demolishing this, that.
Yeah.
But no, they were awesome, and loved when they worked against the Legion of Doom, and of course, they sort of had the twin magic thing going on.
Oh yeah, they were the originators.
They have face paint on. You can't tell them apart.
To be honest, at this point, you know which Bella is which, if nothing else, because of the boob job, right?
Well, they even wear different gear.
They don't look anything alike. It was kind of annoying that they redid it recently, actually. I was like, what? When Brie was pulling, tissues out of her bra, I'm like, yeah, we know you're Brie. But thanks. Anyways, 2010, I don't know how we're going from boobs to Lance Cade, but 2010, Lance Cade passes away from his heart failure at the very young age of 29. I was really surprised by this one. I mean, obviously 29, that's young for anybody to leave our world, but I just did not see this coming.
No. He was one of Shawn Michaels' original students, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, yeah. So, I don't know. It was very sad, and he just didn't really get a chance to leave his mark, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, the tag team he had with, God, what was his name?
And they got abducted in the ambulance?
Yeah.
They took him away. What was the name of that country? And I can think of the theme song.
Yeah. For a second, I was going to say Biscuits and Gravy, but no, that was Festus and Festus and Jesse, right?
Yeah.
Trevor Murdoch.
Trevor Murdoch
was his name.
Yes.
Take a little second. Yeah, I'm getting up there now.
But yeah, R.I.P.
But now I'm going to dig back into the vault to 2010, where WWE diva Tiffany, otherwise known as Taryn,
good old Taryn Terrell,
is suspended and later released by the WWE after an alleged domestic incident at a hotel with then-husband Drew McIntyre. The charges were later dropped in September, but in May 2011 they announced that she and Drew were separating.
So they tried to hash it out for a little bit there, and then
I mean, from what I'd read or heard, rumors here and there, that it was all overblown and this and that, and she really didn't need to get arrested. I don't know, if Drew went to bat for her, and then that's what ended up happening with him getting.
He was no longer Vince's. No, what was it, Mr. Perfect? No, it was the Golden Child.
Golden Child, yeah, yeah. There was a lot of gold in his entrance, wasn't there? With golden lighting and everything too.
Was that what it was, though? I feel like that's not exactly what it was. We're close, but that wasn't exactly what it was. But both of them are now back in the same company, working together, but not together.
Yes.
Not together. She's married, has a baby with a whole other guy.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I guess so.
Hey, as long as everybody's happy.
She looked good, though, you know what I'm saying?
No.
August 14th, 2011, Alberto Del Rio cashes in his Money in the Bank briefcase on Mr. CM Punk, following an attack from Kevin Nash to become the WWE champion.
Now, this is the SummerSlam where there were 2 WWE titles, correct?
I believe so, yeah. Punk had one, Cena had one.
Because that's, when Punk had, Money in the Bank left, and been like, I've got your title.
I like that whole story angle. I didn't know about it was kind of weird that Kevin Nash, I didn't understand the whole Del Rio needing Kevin Nash's. I mean, I guess it makes sense.
Well, no, it wasn't it was on a part of, because Triple H was like the special guest referee, wasn't he? So it wasn't the onus on, the screw job came from Triple H employing
Nash
to come do the job.
Right. And then Del Rio just picked up.
Del Rio was just like, hey, I'm here.
It's amazing how vital Del Rio is to Lucha Underground, and how I mean, he had a couple championship runs in WWE, but they just never really painted him as a significant character as much as I thought that he could have been.
Yeah.
I don't think they really used him right. So I'm glad that they got Lucha Underground and can, really feel like,
oh yeah,
like him versus Morrison at the Lucha Underground Ultima Lucha was one of the best matches that I've seen in forever. But they bounced around on SmackDown and other stuff for a long time and just didn't really have the weight to it.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, as far as creative goes, there's no one that shouldn't feel important.
Yeah.
everybody...
You're doing it wrong.
Yeah, everybody should feel important, no matter what role they have.
Although I don't know about Kevin Nash with a microphone, if he should feel important. He looks menacing, but not so great on the microphone.
In 2004, Randy Orton wins his first WWE title, defeating Chris Benoit at SummerSlam.
Wow, 11 years ago he picked up that first one.
Yeah, his very first title. Crying in the ring.
That's right. Well, he became, he was
the youngest champion at the time.
He became the youngest champion at that point, and still is. I don't think anybody has broken that because they took it away from Brock, basically, at that point, because he used to be the youngest, and then he left in kind of a bit of a not great sort of way. Obviously, they like him now. But, Randy Orton still holds that title, I do believe. Moving on, 2011 WWE referee Mike Chioda. Good old Mike Chioda is suspended for a 30-day violation of the wellness policy.
A referee.
What is he doing exactly? Did he get high? It must be weed.
Or do you think maybe he just had something prescription that maybe got picked up and they're like, oh, well, we got to do this.
Is Chioda juicing?
Yeah, he has looked a little bigger lately.
I wonder. Very strange. Either way, I don't know why a referee is getting suspended for the wellness policy, but it happened this week in wrestling in 2011. At the same time, it is announced that the Tough Enough winner that year, Andy Levine, I believe it is, who knows because we never saw him again, was also suspended for violating the policy.
And then he was gone.
He was already a big dude.
Yeah.
I don't know what he needed to be doing.
Well, that's the thing.
It's hard to say, what. Again, we don't know what the violation is or anything, but
yeah, I mean, I think he had said that he was a bit of a pot smoker at the time.
Oh, well,
I think that had come out maybe on the broadcasts.
It seems to me if you're putting those guys through all that, you should allow some kind of pain medicine, whether it's weed or pills or whatever it is that is acceptable to help them out in what they're putting their bodies through every single day. I understand there's a very fine line, and there's between abuse and proper usage, but they go through so much. There has to be something. They just have to drink. Is that all they get?
Well, I would say prescription or over-the-counter meds, are fine. But when you're looking at a illegal drug, and is gaining traction and may very well be legal.
Yeah, but if you look at marijuana usage, and then how many of those old guys are now passed away because of, like we even said earlier in this week's episode, it's like these guys took too many pain pills or other things
or mixed things.
It's like so many guys have died from that. You don't know of many guys passing away from getting high every so often. But I digress. Any birthdays this week?
I think we got some birthdays to celebrate.
Oh, who's first?
Well, Alexa Bliss is turning a spry 24.
I like Alexa Bliss.
Yeah?
Yeah, she's great. I really like her a lot. The Angry Amish Warrior Roadkill, ECW 39.
Savio Vega turning 50.
Wow. I'm 50! ECW manager Bill Alfonso is 58.
Tara Taylor, Johnny's favorite wrestler, the Red Rooster. The Red Rooster. Who'd have known?
Who'd known he's still kicking it?
Yeah, at 60.
Spike Dudley is 45.
The Coach, Jonathan Coachman, coming in at 42.
Wow. And one of my faves, Bob Backlund, put me in a chicken wing at WrestleMania.
Woo.
Turning 66.
How'd that feel?
It did not feel like he was 66. I would have guessed 40. At least. That thing was tight. It was snug as a mugger.
Bobby Eaton is 57.
Good old Kofi Kingston. Happy birthday, Kofi.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
I like that.
Yeah.
Bad news, Barrett. I've got some pretty good news. It's your birthday. I'm sorry for that accent, everyone. Not just people from England or Wales, just everyone. He's turning 39.
And the real American, Hulk Hogan.
If he still existed.
It's rumored that if he had a birthday, he would be turning 62.
But that's presuming that he still exists.
That he exists. Where'd he go?
Who's to say?
Wait, why is he even on this sheet?
He's flying in Wonder Woman's plane somewhere. Just invisible to the world.
Yeah. Hope he's having a good time up there.
Have a good birthday up there, Mr. America. And that is
This Week
in Wrestling.
We'll just play up.
All right, guys. I am checking in with y'all from Texas. Obviously, I'm not in Los Angeles this week to be on the show with you, but I just got done watching Summer of Champions 2 down in Humble, Texas, and what a night it was. Guys, when this show airs on TV, on the internet, I highly recommend everyone watching it. One of the matches that you have to watch out for on this card took place between two brothers, Andrew and Eric Lockhart. I am telling you, this match was amazing, and I am lucky enough to be sitting here with both of them. I don't know how I got them in the same room together because they're enemies right now, but here they are with me. How we doing, guys?
Doing all right, Chuck. You know what? When you invite us both in and you only have limited time, we'll put differences aside to sit down with Chuck Rice.
Amen to that. Amen to that. I'm a little sore, banged up. My jaw hurts, but my jaw hurts so much from actually smiling from seeing Chuck Rice here in Houston, Texas. So I'll say that.
That's some cheesy crap.
Yeah, it was.
Cheesy crap.
It was.
Andrew's going to make me blush. Jeez. Good Lord.
Cheese and rice over here.
I have that effect.
So listen, guys. One of the things that stood out to me tonight from your match that I think made it stand out on the entire card was the fact that you guys have such amazing chemistry together. What is it like to go in the ring against your brother? Eric, you can start.
What makes that easy is, we grew up our whole lives wrestling each other before we were trained or anything, just wrestling in the living room, wrestling in the backyard, wrestling on the deck. Like, we wrestled everywhere. So by the time we got in the ring and started training to wrestle professionally, anytime we were in together, it was really easy. There was guys, and the first place we trained in Minnesota was MPW would stand for Midwest
Pro Wrestling.
Midwest Pro Wrestling. There was I remember one day in camp, guys were trying to do the Mexican surfboard. You stand on the legs and pull back, so he's up in the air and you hold him from underneath. And we were sitting there brand new. We'd been going for maybe a couple weeks, and I was like, "No, that's not how you do that." And they're like, "Okay, well, show us what you think." So I got in there with Andrew and put him up right away because we watched wrestling, we studied it, and we'd been training without even knowing we were training long before we ever actually paid to be trained. So I think that's where our chemistry comes from.
Andrew, you want to add to that?
Just what he said, it's been like day one because we've been like on a deck, on a trampoline, downstairs in the living room. Don't try that at home, by the way. But we've been wrestling and rolling around and watching tape and everything for years. And then once we got on the road, it's fun all the time. And we're very competitive. So we're going to work with each other, but we're also going to work to be better than one another. And I think that when you have two guys like that and it's respect, you're not just being rude about it. You have like a respect issue of like being competitive. It's like nothing but magic out there, and just the chemistry, as you said, and like the charisma, because you can't teach that, as we were talking about earlier today.
The two things you can't teach in wrestling.
You can't, and like
charisma and chemistry.
And when you have someone like that, especially a family member that can bring that out in you, and you can bring that out in them, it's so much fun, and you can't get any better than that.
Well, the thing that was really interesting to me about this match is you and I were talking about after it was, obviously you came out, Andrew, and you were playing the heel in this match. And at first the reaction was just kind of quiet, and then your brother Eric came out and they popped for him. But by the end of the match, and I'm not going to spoil what happened here, the crowd was into you. What do you think?
Andrew?
Into Andrew, yes, into Andrew. Okay. Sorry, we have to specify for our listeners. You're right. Yes. What do you think caused that change in the match? With this being a crowd that isn't used to watching reality of wrestling, obviously because it's humble and they're not usually running the show here. Mm-hmm. So, how did you make that happen?
Well, as you said, I think at the start they're almost in awe. Because they didn't know what was going on. I don't know if they announced it, if it was brother and brother before I went out there. But I just went out there and did my thing. And obviously, when Eric came out there, they know something's going on and the way we're acting towards each other. And it was really real for me. The stuff I was saying and how I was acting and my facial expressions, And, of course, the way I was dressed, yeah, you're going to get the people who boo you. But I wasn't too worried about, like, I got to do this and do that and do that. Everything I did was so he would look better. And that's always how it is. Like, I always want to make my opponent look better. It's all about, like, the baby face, because if I win, it looks like I beat a really good competitor. If I lose, it's all for him and the crowd.
That makes perfect sense. Now I want to ask you guys, if you guys can ever reconcile your differences, maybe this room right here is a good start, but if you can, what is another brother tag team out there that you guys would want to wrestle?
You know, now that they're not a tag team anymore, when they got back together, I really wanted to get a chance someday to get up and wrestle the Rhodes brothers. That would have been really fun. Just because you can learn a ton from Goldust. And then they seem to have the same mentality that Booker teaches that we've been taught all along. You go out there and put on a show for the audience, and granted, we're competitive, like Andrew said earlier, with each other, but we're also competitive with the rest of the card. We always want to have the best match. And I feel like those guys have the same mentality. I don't know, what do you think?
Just experience-wise, to get something to learn. Well, actually, these are both two teams. The Hardy Boys was definitely something that we grew up on, because though we might dress the same when we were tag teaming and doing certain things, they had such creative moves. It wasn't just like, okay, both guys get in, send them double clothesline or double elbow. Like, they would do one, and then the one would use the other. They were actually a team. And I think we can learn so much from them, because they were both two separate people, but they were a unit together. But like Jeff has his characteristics and Matt has his. I believe Eric and I are like that. And I will say the Young Bucks as well, because everybody else says that, and I think people pay to see that.
I can personally say, when I asked this question, one of the first tag teams that came to my mind was the Young Bucks.
Yeah, I don't know them personally. I would like to meet them someday, but I believe everybody would enjoy that.
Oh, I think that's a money match. But you know what? It's fun. It's funny that you guys say the Hardys, because, you know, you guys do have one other thing in common with the Hardys. When they first started out, they wore some ridiculous pants, and I wish you guys could see what these two are wearing right now. One's wearing orangish, think Texas Longhorn color,
pretty much.
Longhorn color Zumbas, and the other is wearing his zebra Zumbas. Like,
It's newspapers.
this is just, guys. Where are mine? Where's my pair?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I actually have extra pairs of my
When we show up on the show live in LA in person, we'll have a pair for you. We gotta get that invite though.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I'm holding you to that.
Plane cost and everything.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to pay for everything else, but we'll bring you a pair of Zubas.
What colors do we want?
Oh man, it might have to be purple and black.
Okay.
Purple and black?
TCU colors.
I can do that. No, I can do that. Yeah.
TCU colors for Chuck.
I might actually have a purple and black at home.
Oh my.
Yeah.
They might be mine.
I think you do.
They might belong to me now.
Still.
Oh shit.
Okay.
I got a lot of pairs of these.
Well, listen, guys. Everyone listening at home, when this match airs, you have to watch the match between the Brother Lockharts. Like, you just have to. It's amazing.
Why not? Yeah.
It'll be on YouTube. YouTube.com/BookerTROW or the Booker T ROW.
And I have one quick question. This is getting a little off topic, but not really, because this is wrestling. Chuck, what is the best wrestling piece of merchandise you have ever owned in your whole life?
What is the best piece of wrestling merchandise that I have ever owned? First of all, what is going on where all of the people that I'm interviewing turn the interviews around on me? Like, first it's Stevie Ray, then it's you guys.
You see, everyone's trying to get their own podcast.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Like, hey, we can interview and ask cool questions too.
You know what? One of the coolest pieces of wrestling merchandise that I own is not something that I purchased. It's something that I was lucky enough to get, and at first I didn't realize it. I currently own John Cena's WrestleMania 30 hat, which I caught in the crowd. I caught it in the crowd, and I think that's pretty cool, especially because it's signed by him now. So yeah. So I mean, you know, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate from, you know, a bunch of the internet fans. Oh, Cena memorabilia, blah, blah, but
you worked to catch it. You worked for that.
It's pretty. I think it's pretty cool. So
proud of that, yeah.
Guys, before I let you go, where can they find you on Twitter?
On Twitter would be alockhart11, and I'm in the process of Instagram right now, whenever this gets uploaded, but Twitter is alockhart11.
Your name won't be as cool as Dale's on there, though.
D-Walk and Dale, my props. I applaud that every time I hear it on the podcast.
It's one of the best Twitter names.
It has
I have
to
no
be.
idea what Johnny's is. And I only know yours because you'll tweet me.
Right.
But yeah, you can never forget the Walking Dale.
It's classic.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
I'm sure Dale will appreciate you guys saying that.
But Eric Lockhart on Twitter is at Eric_Lockhart, and then flip it around for Instagram at Lockhart_Eric. So,
well, guys, I thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to having you on the show again very soon.
thank you, Chuck.
Go Astros.
Hell yeah.
Oh, Astros, cheap pop.
There you have it. An interview from Texas. The Lockhart brothers. Chuck Rice, he did it. He's doing remote interviews. Right?
Can you believe it? He held the microphone and everything.
Yeah. And I don't think he thought it was anything else, so he didn't try and smoke it or use it in any incorrect ways. So that's awesome. Reality wrestling still going strong. The brothers fighting each other. Dale, I didn't break the show.
Good job, buddy. I really appreciate you just really hugging it and holding it tight.
And thanks for rolling your eyes while saying that, buddy. And big thanks to Marc Warzecha for being on the show. Mark, where can people find your projects? Where can they reach out to you on Twitter?
They can find me on Twitter at Marc Warzecha, MarcWarzecha. And Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff too.
Oh, and of course, New Japan English commentary.
Yes, is also on Twitter.
Yes, I like those. You did it before JR.
That's true, and before Morrow.
Yes,
they've both done it. They've both done it better, but hopefully we did okay.
They're ripping you off, Mark. They're ripping you off. Dale, where can they find you at?
You can always find me at The Walking Dale on Instagram and Twitter. You can also find me on youtube.com/dishingOnMovies.
Thank you, Dale. And me, you can find me on Twitter at Curtain Jerks, and you can listen to my comedy wrestling podcast, Curtain Jerks, available on iTunes and SoundCloud. Also, my comedy video game podcast, 16 Bits Podcast, available also on iTunes and SoundCloud. Next week, I think the whole gang is back. I think Johnny will be back from the Middle East. I think Chuck will be back from Texas. I think Dale will still be rocking it on the phone with everybody, so the crew will be back. Don't worry, I was just temporary. Calm yourselves. Everything will be right in the world again next week. So thank you for listening to Wrestling Compadres. Be sure to like on Facebook. Be sure to follow on Twitter and give that rate and review on iTunes. Thanks so much, everybody.
Wrestling buddies want to be your buddy.
Buddy. Buddy.
You got me mad now.